course. All the days it had to be. It's when I turned 30. Only come so far in life. And yet, I feel like nothing's been accomplished.
Hey, Foxman! Ooh. Happy 30th to you. What's that? Your birthday. That's who. Take a breath, make a wish, and try to do good for humanity too. Don't remind me. I don't get it. I thought he liked Hostess cupcakes.
Oh hey, the chair's back! Oh, who am I kidding? Here today, gone tomorrow, gone tomorrow, here today, doesn't really matter. Where's it? Yeah, you're kinda right, Judy. I really should simmer down a little bit. I'm only having a midlife crisis before the actual midlife crisis. There's many things to look forward to. My show, you, those friends. I mean, what's to worry about? I mean, it's just that there's only so much you can do in the hours of a day. You have so little time. Just overwhelms you. Really? You did? Oh, just because it's my birthday, you decided to pick today's movie. Oh, isn't that just adorable? So what'd you do today, little Judester? You had to choose something that had the word time in it, didn't you? Not once, but twice. Well, normally in this circumstance, I would change it to something else, but I won't, because one, you picked it, and on top of that, there's actually some good stuff to talk about. There is no other movie I can think of that has such an insane premise, and yet doesn't feel too crazy or too serious. What if a famous science fiction author actually built a time machine and found himself traveling to the late 1970s while trying to stop Jack the Ripper? Bonkers as it sounds, time after time surprisingly works, and considering the level of talent behind the camera, it's not hard to see why. There's a solid script at bay, good performances, and all anchored by then-new director Nicholas Meyer, who really knows how to take such an out-there concept and make it feasible. Writer Carl Alexander approached Meyer with 55 pages from his unfinished novel, which this movie was based from. Meyer enjoyed what he read so much that he opted to make a movie out of it. Nicholas Meyer is no stranger to jumbling historical figures together, as he had previous experience on adapting his novel The 7% Solution to the big screen. In that one, Meyer had Sherlock Holmes being teamed up with Sigmund Freud to solve a case and treat Holmes' drug addiction at the same time. In Time After Time, you had H.G. Wells going after the infamous Jack the Ripper across time and space itself.
That's just silly!
Okay, I know that sounds extremely bizarre and possibly pure fan fiction, but believe me, the way it's executed keeps everything anchored together at a very believable level. We first begin in 1893 London, where H.G. Wells, played by Malcolm McDowell, shows off his latest invention, based from the book he wrote.
The machine is designed with several safety features. The reversal rotation lock automatically returns the machine to its starting date after the completion of a voyage. If the occupant is injured during the course of a flight, the passenger is returned to the point of departure. Unless he uses this key. Well, John, this is the vaporizing equalizer. Without it, the passenger journeys through time without the machine. And without the machine, there is no coming back.
Okay, crazy as it seems, the idea of Wells making the time machine a reality is somewhat acceptable. This is a writer who dared to dream his personal views of the future and theorize what society could become down the line. If I did have to nitpick, the design of the time machine is a bit campy and looks more like a rejected Willy Wonka device. However, Nicholas Meyer did say he got the influence for the machine's look from Captain Nemo's Nautilus submarine in order to give a Victorian look. And even if it's nowhere near as cool as the one in the George Pal adaptation, it still fits in with the simplistic tone of the feature. Also in this era is the infamous Jack the Ripper, who in reality was an infamous serial killer that was never identified. As it turns out, he happens to be a close friend of Wells and a surgeon. Okay, the idea that Jack the Ripper hid under the alias of a medical surgeon, I can easily buy. On top of that, he uses Wells' time machine to dive further into the future, but as luck may have it, Jack didn't have the key that keeps the machine in the traveler's destination, which leaves Wells the ability to go after him.
How much?
£15 and sixpence, sir. Will you want it all?
All, if you please, Mrs. Turner. Oh.
Something wrong, sir?
No. Would you mind awfully? Money may not answer, I'm afraid. I may have to trade with the natives.
As you can tell, I'm detailing a whole lot of the opening because of how much setup there is that could falter, but Nicholas Meyer manages to somehow get it at a brisk 10 to 15 minute pace without oversaturating too much information. Most time travel movies have a great detail on why the time traveler wants to go back in time, the way the time machine works, and everything else in between. In any case, this could either be too much or a little too much, but somehow Nicholas Meyer manages to take everything at a very brisk pace so that we understand who, what, where, when, and why, and proceed on to our adventure. Once H.G. Wells takes off across time, this is where the movie for me really takes off. Normally I'm a big sucker for fish out of water stories, but there's more to it. While Wells does try to track down Jack the Ripper, he engages in seeing the marvels of the 20th century, that is, 1979.
The first job is to learn the language spoken by some shiny creatures I've met here. Ma, it said. The shiny creatures were trying to communicate. They wanted to make friends.
One of the elements that I think really makes this movie generally work is Malcolm McDowell's performance as H.G. Wells. Yep, Malcolm McDowell plays the hero this time. Ironic as he was coming off of doing Caligula and wanted a break from doing anything that involved sex and bloody violence. And even more ironic is that Time After Time was McDowell's first work in an American movie. With that in mind, there's something so genuine about his performance as Wells, as much as how the character interacts to modern marvels like television or San Francisco. McDowell did a lot of study on the real-life H.G. Wells, even going as far as to listen to old BBC archive recordings of Wells speaking.
We have increased the productivity of our economic organization so greatly that a smaller and smaller proportion of people can produce everything that we need.
Yeah, probably for the best that McDowell went for his own personal take instead of something actual close to the original source that could have been laughable on the big screen, despite British film critics at the time telling him how dare he mess with authenticity. But I can personally let that slide because I feel McDowell really adds to the optimistic tone of Wells' view of the future. Easily, the best moments are when he notices how so much is different from his time period compared to the modern world. It goes beyond the fish out of water element by showing how far we have come with modern technology. And yet, there are elements of today's world that show certain things haven't changed. This is easily highlighted in a humorous moment when he visits a McDonald's. It's played both for laughs, and even sets up a good callback later on.
This is delicious. Far superior to that Scottish place where I breakfasted.
Scottish.
McDougal's.
Oh, and before we move on, damn you 1979 fast food prices! Damn you! While most of Wells' observations tend to be humorous, some actually do hold a point. When he finally meets up with Jack the Ripper, Jack illustrates that the humankind has not moved forward, but backwards. Cliché as it sounds, to use television as a means to bring his point still works in a chilling way.
You haven't gone forward, Herbert. You've gone back.
It was the next day, brothers, and I had truly done my best morning and afternoon to play it their way and sit like a horror show cooperative malchick in the chair of torture while they flashed nasty bits of ultra-violence on the screen.
The world has caught up with me and surpassed me. 90 years ago, I was a freak. Today, I'm an amateur. The future isn't what you thought. It's what I am.
It does make us question if we as people have actually improved our lives, or find ourselves still stuck in that primitive mindset. And this is what exactly I love about Time After Time. It asks if we truly feel optimistic or pessimistic of today's world. While there are advancements, not a whole lot has changed to justify if we are truly one big unit. It's material like this that makes you wish today's science fiction stuff was smarter and intelligent, and between you and me, I felt Season 2 was an improvement. And before we even mention it, yes, that is David the Loeb Warner as Jack the Ripper, and his performance is chilling and juicy as ever. What makes it especially sweet is how Warner and McDowell were actual friends in real life and worked on stage prior. Not only do they play the good versus evil ploy, but the dynamics of their characters' arguing theories feel genuine as it was seen before in the opening set in Victorian London.
The evidence of human history is that we live in a cosmic charnel house. Mankind has not changed for 2,000 years. We hunt, we're hunted. That's how it is. That's how it shall always be.
The future will prove you wrong.
The future will tell.
Had you worked together instead of against each other, you might have been successful.
It becomes more than just a cat and mouse chase, but also a debate to whose view of the future is more accurate. And speaking of chases...
Violence. You know, you finding me here is rather fortuitous, for me, that is. Otherwise, I'd be obliged to search for you.
Before I tell you, you have to do something for me.
What?
I want you to chase me.
All right, a little chase, then you help me.
Should I start, or do you want to?
You go ahead.
You'll never get me, freakazoid! Run, 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 run. Run, 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 run. Run, 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 run. Run, 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 run.
Okay, as unintentionally hilarious as that is, I must address this was Nicholas Meyer's first time directing, and later on he would do stuff like Star Trek II, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and The Day After, so I can let stuff like this slide a little bit. I mean, after all, if Steven Spielberg can go from this... to this... say anything's game.
In truth, the Jack the Ripper material really serves more as the story's anchor, to give Wells a reason to go back to 1979. Secretly, Time After Time is really a romance story when you think about it. When traveling from bank to bank to find where Jack visited, Wells comes across a worker named Amy Robbins, played by Mary Steenburgen. As expected, the two develop a romance, and it's kinda cute. The idea of a suave Victorian falling for someone in the modern era is not a bad idea. It makes you wonder if chivalry still exists in today's world. And while Wells does as much as he can to hide the fact that he's from a different time period, she just views it as Wells being quirky, and it fits the norm of the moment.
You say you're after this man. Are you a detective or something? You work for Scotland Yard?
Well, let's just say that their interests are definitely involved.
I don't understand. Why can't you just go to the police? Tell them who they're looking for. What's wrong with that?
They'd never believe me.
You don't know that.
They'd never... If you knew the whole story, you'd never believe me.
I'd believe you.
I also like Steenburgen's performance as well. Behind the shy and quiet nature is someone that is smart and intelligent. The only downfall of the character is how she becomes a damsel in distress to serve the film's final act, but honestly, how else can you resolve the Jack the Ripper storyline?
Two pieces of irony that I find very interesting here. When McDowell and Steenburgen acted together on screen, they literally fell in love with each other. So much so that once the movie wrapped, they got married. Yeah, talk about life imitating art. And despite the fact they later divorced in 1990 with 2 kids at the helm, it's still nice to know that they had a good life at best, and some good came out of it. Even if it was brief at best, but enjoyable brief.
The second thing that most viewers tend to discover is how similar this is to Back to the Future Part 3. In that one, Doc Brown travels on accident to old West Hill Valley in 1885. Don't ask, long story. There, he falls in love with a school teacher who holds great ambition as he does. Even both movies feature a similar moment when Steenburgen's character expresses disbelief when the time traveler reveals his true intentions. In response to these coincidences, I feel Steenburgen said it best. It's pretty strange feeling to find yourself doing the same scene so many years apart for the second time in your career.
Golly!
Maybe that's why Time After Time has held up so much over the years. The camp factor lends itself to the simplistic nature of the production that makes for a genuinely sweet movie. True, the stuff with Jack the Ripper is there to add an element of danger, but it doesn't go as violent as one would imagine. And while Jack performs a killing spree in 1979, the idea that they convey is gruesome execution without showing too much gore. If they did even dare show a corpse or a decapitated head, it would have drastically changed the tone of the movie completely. There was an attempt to revive it in 2017 with the ABC TV series, but it was cancelled after 5 episodes aired due to low ratings. Personally, the issue I have with the series is that it was played way too serious. And I do welcome new interpretations, don't get me wrong, but the original came out at the right moment when you could do high concepts like this. The movie balances the right levels of campy with an innocent tone and convincing romance. When it needs to be serious, it can do that. There's much to enjoy and appreciate here. Time After Time is clear proof that you can take a concept like this and make good use of it, when placed in the right hands. It has become a cult hit over the generations, and you can see why for yourself. This is one science fiction classic that is not just a recommendation, but a pure must-watch.
And to think that H.G. Wells imagined that one day we would all advance and create such progress, be given the will to advance forward and do such amazing things, and... yet, here I am. Been doing this whole show for 10 years now. I don't think I've progressed much with my time. If only there was some way I could know that the value of my life was certainly worth it when I was born. I thought I was in for a rough landing there. Especially all the... There better be a logically reasonable explanation for all this. Here, happy birthday! That will send you on a life-fulfilling quest across space and time. Believe me, I wouldn't have known if I'm here. Alright. After all, it's not the weirdest thing that's happened in my show. A lot of bizarre things have happened, but... Center. Sucker. Why does time travel always look so freaky?
Lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick and think of you. Caught up in circles, confusion is nothing new. You say go slow, I fall behind. The second hand unwinds. Get lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time, if you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time, time after time, time after time. Sometimes you picture me, I'm walking too far ahead. You're calling to me, I can't hear just what you've said. You say go slow, I fall behind. The second hand unwinds.
Cut.
Give me a Big Mac, an order of fries, and a small Coke to go, please. Here.
Give me a Big Mac, fries.
And tea to go, please.